I was recently reading through 1 Samuel again and studying through it, and I came across the phrase, obedience is better than sacrifice. Now, every time I have read that phrase and really took it to heart, it has been incredibly convicting because human beings and being human, I would rather sacrifice than be obedient, because then I'm controlling how much I sacrifice, or I'm inflating my ego by how much I sacrifice versus not. And obedience is a whole different dynamic. But here, Samuel makes it very clear that obedience is better than sacrifice. Now, as I was studying this time through, I was reading a commentary that referred back to a mid-1700 or mid-1800 study Bible. I cannot recall the name, but I didn't want to let this point pass, so you'll just have to take my word for it. But as I was reading through that, in the marginal notes, this study Bible stated that the will is the greatest sacrifice. That sacrificing the will is the largest thing that you can sacrifice. And as I begin to think on that, that is convicting and so truthful. How many of us have stated something like, I want to start a Christian business that will impact so many people. I want to lead 100 people to Jesus Christ. I want to give $1 million to missions. And we state all these grandiose things that we want to give to God. Now, this is a very prideful position to think that we could give anything to God, and I have been guilty of thinking in that fashion. I remember being called on this about 20 years ago. Someone pointed out, you think you can give to God? You can't. Wasn't David straightened out on this matter? He wanted to build the temple for the Lord, and the Lord's like, what are you going to do for me? In fact, no, you can't do anything for me. Wait, we'll let your son do it, just so you have proper perspective. And so it is wrong of us and wrong-hearted of us to think that we can give anything unto the Lord or sacrifice unto Him. And if that gets tainted in any way by our pride or our misunderstanding of the levels of authority and who is the great one and who isn't, then it's kind of a tainted sacrifice, and the sacrifice really doesn't matter. But the greatest sacrifice is the sacrifice of the will. Now, if you think about this, you have been created by God to be in His image. You have been given your own finiteness. You have been created as an independent entity from God. Now, obviously, we dwell inside of God, inside of His essence and presence, but we are created independently. And part of that independence is shown constantly in the fact that we have been given a free will, the freedom to choose. We can actually choose against God's will. That obviously is not a good thing to do. It's actually great evil, and it's just going to cause all kind of harm and chaos, etc. But it represents our ability to actually stand against or in the face of God and to defy Him if we so choose. We are given that freedom and ability. And at the end of the day, that is the only thing we control is our choices on the inside, our freedom to choose. Any sacrifice that we could even think to offer God would be based on the choices and the freedom to choose on the inside, which is, in fact, a matter of the will. So to sacrifice the will in obedience to God is always going to be the largest thing you do, even if it's the smallest request that He asks of you.